My name is Victoria. My Aunt Constance has looked down on me my entire life, the poor niece from my mother's side, raised in a small apartment while she lived in her mansion. At her charity gala, she whispered that I looked like hired help. What she didn't know was that 30 minutes earlier, I'd seen her hiding something behind the staircase. Something that would destroy everything she'd built. The comment was delivered with a smile, just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Constance leaned close as I stood near the hors d'oeuvres table, her champagne breath washing over me. Victoria, darling, perhaps next time wear something less serviceable. You look like one of the catering staff. Several women in designer gowns tittered politely. I wore a simple black dress from a department store. Clean, appropriate, but clearly not the $1,000 evening wear the other guests had chosen. I'd driven 3 hours to attend this charity event for her foundation, the Constance Whitmore Foundation for Arts Education. She'd insisted my presence was important. Family unity, she'd said. Now I understood why she'd wanted me here. To contrast. To make herself look more generous, more sophisticated. Look at Constance, so kind to her struggling niece. So gracious to include her in high society. I smiled, excused myself. Walked toward the bathroom through the crowd of wealthy donors discussing tax write-offs and vacation homes. But I didn't go to the bathroom. I'd already seen what I needed to see. 30 minutes earlier, I'd arrived at Constance's estate early. The door was unlocked, caterers going in and out, no one monitoring guests yet. I'd entered quietly, intending to find Constance and offer to help before the party started. Instead, I'd found her in the back hallway near the grand staircase. She was crouched behind the curved section where the stairs turned, shoving something into a gap in the wall panel. A loose piece of decorative molding. She looked frantic, checking over her shoulder repeatedly. I ducked into a side room before she saw me. Watched through the cracked door as she finished hiding whatever it was, smoothed her dress, took a deep breath, and transformed back into the poised socialite. After she walked away, I investigated. Behind the loose molding was a leather folder. I pulled it out carefully, photographed every page with my phone, then replaced it exactly as I'd found it. Bank statements. Not from Constance's personal accounts from the foundation. The Constance Whitmore Foundation, which supposedly funded arts programs for underprivileged children. Transfers to offshore accounts, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not going to schools or community centers. Going to numbered accounts in the Cayman Islands. Constance was embezzling from her own charity. The foundation received millions in donations every year. Tax-deductible contributions from wealthy friends who thought their money was helping children. Instead, it was funding Constance's lifestyle. This house, her cars, her jewelry. Her reputation as a generous philanthropist. All built on fraud. I'd backed up the photos to 3 cloud accounts before the party even started. Then I'd walked into the gathering room, greeted guests, and waited for Constance to reveal exactly who she was. The maid's comment was perfect. Captured on several phones as guests recorded the elegant party. Constance's cruelty toward family, casual and thoughtless, is preserved in digital form. I smiled through the rest of the evening, accepted condolences from guests who pitied me. Let them see Constance's true nature. Documented who was there, who donated, and who praised the foundation's work. Then I went home and started building my case. The investigation took 3 weeks. I didn't go to the police immediately. I needed to understand the full scope. How long had this been happening? How much money? Who else might be involved? I'm a forensic accountant, have been for 8 years. I specialize in finding financial fraud for corporate clients. Constance knew this. She'd made jokes about it at family dinners, suggesting I must be fun at parties, always looking for discrepancies. She had no idea how good I actually was. I started with the publicly available information. The foundation's tax returns, filed yearly with the IRS, and are accessible through charity databases. Revenue reported, $2.3 million last year. Expenses, $1.9 million, supposedly going to program costs, teacher salaries, art supplies, facility rentals for after-school programs. But the bank statements I'd photographed showed different numbers. Only $400,000 actually went to programs. The rest 1.5 million was transferred through a series of shell companies to offshore accounts controlled by Constance. I traced the shell companies. 3 of them, all registered in Delaware with anonymous ownership structures. But the formation documents, which I obtained through professional databases, showed Constance's layer as the registered agent, a man named Preston Clark, who also happened to be on the foundation's board of directors. Clark was complicit, probably helping structure the fraud. I examined 5 years of tax returns. The pattern was consistent, millions coming in from donors. A fraction is going to actual charitable work. The rest is disappearing into offshore accounts through the shell companies. Over 5 years, Constance had stolen approximately $6.8 million. Some of the donors were recognizable names: local business owners, a state senator, several doctors and lawyers. People who'd claim these donations on their tax returns, reducing their tax burden while believing their money helped children. The IRS would be very interested in this. So would the state attorney general. Charity fraud was both a state and federal crime. But I needed more than bank statements. I needed proof that the offshore accounts belonged to Constance. I needed evidence that she controlled the shell companies. I needed to make the case ironclad. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Diana Ross, no relation to the singer, but heard the joke constantly. Diana specialized in financial investigations. I showed her what I'd found. She looked at the documents and whistled low. Diana traced the offshore accounts. Found property purchases in Constance's name, a vacation home in the Bahamas, purchased 3 years ago for $1.2 million, paid in cash. Wire transfers came from one of the shell companies. The same week, the foundation received a major donation from a local tech millionaire who thought his money was building a youth arts center. The youth arts center was never built. The millionaire's donation went to Constance's beach house. Diana also found credit card statements. Constance had been sloppy used a card linked to one of the shell companies for personal purchases. Designer clothing, jewelry, a car lease, all paid with money donated to help children. We documented everything, built a timeline. Matched donations to transfers. Matched transfers to purchases. Created a clear trail from the donor to Constance's personal accounts. 3 weeks after the party, I had a complete case. Irrefutable evidence of charity fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion spanning 5 years. Then I started contacting people. The first person I contacted was Michael Brennan, investigative journalist for the state's largest newspaper. I'd worked with Michael before on a corporate fraud case that resulted in a major expose. He was thorough, careful, and had excellent legal support from his paper. He wouldn't run a story without verifying everything. I sent him the documents with a detailed explanation. He called me within hours. We met at a coffee shop downtown. I brought printed copies of everything: bank statements, tax returns, property records, credit card statements, the timeline Diana and I had built. Michael reviewed it all, asking sharp questions, testing my analysis. After 2 hours, he said, "This is Pulitzer-level fraud. But I need verification from authorities before I can publish." "Have you gone to the police?" "Not yet," I said. I wanted the story ready to break simultaneously with the criminal investigation. Maximum impact. No chance for Constance to flee or hide assets. Michael agreed to coordinate. He'd write the story, have it ready to publish. The moment I contacted authorities, he'd verify through official channels and run the piece. Next, I contacted the IRS, filed a detailed whistleblower complaint through their online system, attached all my evidence. The IRS takes charity fraud seriously. It undermines the entire nonprofit system and costs the government tax revenue. Then I contacted the state attorney general's office. Spoke with a prosecutor named Sarah Martinez who handled white-collar crime. She listened to my summary, asked for the evidence, and had her team review everything within 48 hours. Sarah called me personally, said they wanted to pursue criminal charges. But they needed original documents, not just photographs. They needed to confirm that the offshore accounts existed and belonged to Constance. They needed to interview Preston Clark and determine his level of involvement. The investigation would take months, maybe a year. But with my evidence as a starting point, they could get warrants, subpoena records, and build a prosecutable case. I asked what would happen to the foundation. Sarah said it would likely be dissolved. Assets seized to repay defrauded donors and fund actual charitable programs. Board members who were involved in the fraud would face scrutiny, but probably not charges if they could prove they didn't know. Most of the board members were Constance's wealthy friends. They trusted her completely, never actually auditing the finances. Their reputations would be damaged by association, but they'd avoid criminal liability. Preston Clark, though, he was going to prison alongside Constance. While authorities investigated, I contacted the major donors. Not all of them, just the largest ones. The tech millionaire whose donation funded Constance's beach house. The state senator who'd been photographed with Constance at foundation events. The local business owners who donated six figures over the years. I didn't tell them everything. Just ask questions. Had they visited any of the programs the foundation supposedly funded? Had they received detailed financial reports? Had they verified their donations were being used appropriately? None of them had. They'd trusted Constance. Trusted her reputation. Trusted the foundation's glossy brochures showing smiling children with paintbrushes and musical instruments stock photos I'd discovered, not actual program participants. I planted seeds of doubt, made them start asking questions. Several contacted the foundation requesting detailed financial audits. Constance scrambled to produce reports, but the requests made her nervous. Diana's surveillance showed her meeting with Preston Clark multiple times, both looking stressed. They knew something was wrong. Knew someone was digging. They didn't know it was me. 2 months after the party, authorities were ready to move. Sarah Martinez had warrants for both Constance and Preston. Michael had his story written and fact-checked. The IRS had opened a formal investigation. Everything was coordinated for maximum impact. I made one last move. I sent Constance an invitation to coffee. Just us. I said I wanted to apologize for my appearance at the party, that I'd been embarrassed by her comment, but understood I should have dressed better. Could we talk? Family was important. She agreed. Probably thought I was coming to beg for money or approval. One last chance to feel superior to her poor niece. She had no idea what was coming. We met at an upscale cafe that Constance frequented. She arrived 15 minutes late, power move. Greeted me with air kisses and a patronizing smile. Ordered an expensive latte and a pastry she wouldn't eat. Asked how I was doing in that tone that implied she already knew the answer, not as well as her. I let her talk. She went on about the foundation's latest gala, the generous donations, and the wonderful programs they were funding. Mentioned she was considering expanding to 3 more cities next year. The work was so rewarding, helping underprivileged children achieve their dreams. I smiled, nodded, let her paint herself deeper into the lie. Then I said I'd been thinking about the party, about her comment, about how she'd always treated me like I was less than her. Constance's smile tightened. She started to protest. She'd never meant it that way. I was too sensitive. Family was complicated. I interrupted. Said it was interesting how she debuilt her reputation on helping poor children while simultaneously mocking her own niece for being poor. The hypocrisy was striking. Her face went cold. She said I was being dramatic. That she'd made a harmless comment about my dress. I pulled out my phone. Opened the photos. Slid it across the table. The bank statements. Her face went white. I told her I'd seen her hiding them behind the staircase. That I'd photographed everything. That I'd spent 2 months investigating. That I knew about the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the $6.8 million stolen from donors who thought they were helping children. Constance grabbed for my phone. I pulled it back, told her those were copies, that I had backups. That the state attorney general had the originals. That warrants were being executed right now at her house, at Preston Clark's office, and at the foundation headquarters. Her hand shook as she set down her coffee cup. She started to speak, stopped, tried again, asked what I wanted. Money. A cut of the accounts? She could make me rich. We could be partners. I laughed, told her I didn't want money. I wanted justice. Told her that in approximately 30 minutes, Michael Brennan's story would go live. Every major news outlet in the state would pick it up by evening. Her name, her fraud, her beach house bought with donations meant for children, all of it public. Told her the IRS was auditing 5 years of her tax returns. That she'd been claiming charitable deductions while embezzling the donated funds. Tax evasion on top of fraud. Told her the major donors were being contacted. That they knew their money had funded her lifestyle instead of helping children. Several were planning civil lawsuits to recover their donations. Told her she was going to prison. That Preston Clark was going with her. That the foundation would be dissolved. That her reputation as a philanthropist would be replaced with infamy as a thief who exploited charity for personal gain. Constance's face crumpled. She started crying, mascara running. Sighed. I didn't understand the pressure she'd been under. Maintaining her social position required money. The foundation had started legitimately, but expenses got out of control. That she'd meant to pay it back. Lies on top of lies. The foundation had never been legitimate. From the beginning, she'd planned to use it as a personal piggy bank. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah Martinez. Both subjects in custody. Search warrants executed. Press release going out now. I showed Constance the message. Told her the police were probably waiting outside the cafe. That she could go voluntarily or be arrested here, in front of everyone she'd tried to impress. She stood on shaking legs, knocked over her latte. Coffee spread across the white tablecloth like a stain spreading through fabric. I stayed seated. Watched her walk out of the cafe. Watched police officers approach her in the parking lot. Watched them read her rights, handcuff her, put her in the squad car. Several people in the cafe had their phones out, recording. The moment would be online within minutes. Constance Whitmore, a prominent philanthropist, was arrested for fraud. The irony was beautiful. The trial took 18 months. Constance and Preston Clark both pleaded not guilty initially. Their lawyers tried to argue the foundation's finances were complicated. That money had been moved for legitimate business reasons. That offshore accounts were for international expansion that never materialized. The prosecution demolished every argument. Showed the timeline of donations matched to personal purchases. Showed the beach house, the jewelry, the designer clothes, all bought with charity funds. Showed tax returns where Constance had claimed deductions for donations to her own charity. While simultaneously embezzling from it, Michael's story had exploded into national news. Socialite philanthropists stole millions from children's charity, ran in papers across the country. Photos of Constance at galas, wearing jewelry bought with stolen money, contrasted with photos of the underfunded schools that should have received the donations, the major donors testified. The tech millionaire who donated to a youth art center that was never built. The state senator who'd posed with Constance at events, unknowingly endorsing a fraud. Local business owners who'd trusted her completely. I testified for 4 hours. Explained how I'd discovered the fraud. Walked the jury through the forensic analysis. Showed them how $6.8 million had been stolen over 5 years. Through a careful system of shell companies and offshore accounts, the defense tried to paint me as vindictive. A poor relative, jealous of Constance's success, fabricates evidence out of spite over a comment about my dress. The prosecution countered. I'm a forensic accountant with an impeccable reputation. I worked on major fraud cases. My analysis had been verified by the IRS, the state attorney general, and independent auditors. The evidence was irrefutable. Preston Clark broke first. Accepted a plea deal. Testified against Constance in exchange for a reduced sentence. Admitted he'd helped structure the shell companies, had advised her on hiding the money. Had falsified foundation documents to cover the embezzlement. With Clark's testimony, Constance's defense collapsed. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. 23 counts of wire fraud, tax evasion, and charity fraud. Constance was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Preston got 8 years. Both were ordered to pay full restitution, $6.8 million plus. Penalties and interest to be distributed to the actual charitable programs the foundation claimed to support. The foundation was dissolved. Its remaining legitimate assets, about $300,000 in cash that hadn't been embezzled yet, went to established arts education nonprofits in the state. The donors who'd been defrauded received tax credits for their losses. Constance's house was seized. Her cars, her jewelry, the beach house in the Bahamas. Everything was sold at auction to fund the restitution. She lost everything. My family was torn. Some members blamed me for destroying Constance, for sending her to prison, for creating a scandal. Others thanked me for exposing the truth, for ensuring stolen money went where it was supposed to go. I didn't care what they thought. I'd done what was right. The comment about me looking like a maid became infamous in the news coverage. Video from the party showing Constance's casual cruelty played repeatedly in news segments. It became a symbol of her character, someone who looked down on family while stealing from children's charity. I still work as a forensic accountant. Now, I get calls from other nonprofits asking me to audit their finances, to make sure they're clean, to catch fraud before it becomes a 6.8 million disaster. And sometimes, when I'm at professional events, people recognize me. The woman who took down her aunt for charity fraud. They ask how I did it. How I stayed patient for 2 months building an ironclad case. How I coordinated with authorities and media for maximum impact. I tell them the truth. I saw an opportunity, and I documented everything. I used my skills to expose fraud. And I didn't let family loyalty stop me from doing what was right. To everyone watching this, listening to this story, if you see something wrong, investigate. If you have skills that can expose fraud or abuse or theft, use them. And don't let anyone make you feel small for being who you are, whether that's being poor, being different, or simply being someone with integrity. Constance thought she could insult me while stealing millions. She thought I was too insignificant to matter. She was wrong. Have you ever discovered someone close to you was committing fraud? Did you report it? Share your story in the comments. And if this resonated with you, if you've ever been looked down on by family who thought they were better than you, subscribe. These stories matter. They remind us that integrity matters more than wealth, that the truth always comes out. The people who look down on us are often hiding the ugliest secrets. Constance called me a maid. Now she's in prison wearing an orange jumpsuit. While I'm still free, still working, still standing, the staircase hid her secrets. But I found them. And I made sure everyone else did too.